I go to shut the hood, and both hood hinges buckle, and the thing falls over, and it looks like a big buck tooth sticking out, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done with this car. What is up, everybody? My name is Dane Thompson, and welcome back to another episode of Burndown. So, in today's episode, what we're going to be tackling is we're going to finally try to mount this intercooler. I actually messed with it a little while ago, and I shot some video of me putting it in and kind of have a tentative position on it. And then I took it over to a buddy, KP Fabricating, the guy that does all my tuning and stuff on my cars. I can't weld aluminum. I don't have a TIG welder. I have a MIG. So I took it to him, and it had this little weird pipe thing that was on there. I'll have to see if I have a picture of it. The way that it is going to mount on the car, because it is so ginormous, it's a Mother of All Intercoolers. It's going to hang, it'll be above and below the bumper. It'll be basically, the bumper's going to be like Frenched around this thing because it's such a monster. And this weird pipe would hang down. It was like ugly, and I'm like, I got to cut that off and at least make it a straight shot and kind of do my due diligence to make it look as good as I can, considering it's going to be like a giant wart on a witch's nose, which is awesome, mind you. It'll be great for the car. He welded up a couple bungs, and we changed it up a little bit, so now my mounting strategy is different. So I actually am ahead of the game because I have a little bar, which I'll show you, that goes across that should hold the weight of it. And then now he put two little mounting bosses on the bottom. I'll show you his phenomenal welds and the stuff that he did for me. And then also, we had some issues last time I worked on the car. I go to shut the hood, and both hood hinges buckle, and the thing falls over, and it looks like a big buck tooth sticking out, and I was like, I'm done with this car. So literally it sat like that for a couple days because my focus is on the intercooler and the cold side plumbing. If I could knock those two things out, we are killing it. Let's go take a look at the work that I've done since the camera hasn't been rolling, and some of the stuff my buddy did for me. All right, here we go. This is the Mother of All Intercoolers. Good Lord. So if I flip it up, on the top it had these little standoffs that stood up, and then it had little bungs. So initially I was hanging it off this, and then I attached those bungs, but I didn't have a way to stabilize the bottom. So with all your attachment points here, the thing would, do one of these. So I asked my buddy, I was like, what should we do about that? And he's like, you don't need 4 bungs on top, let's just cut these off. So that's what he actually did for me. So he cut them off, and then he moved them down here. And then he put these killer little aluminum tear-off plates, and then these are the actual bungs. They used to live here. And then what we did is, this is the outlet, and then this is the inlet, and this piece down here, he welded this little piece around it. It had an opening with a pipe, and this was capped. So I had this scrap piece, so he put this in, capped that, and then threw these on here. So that changes how it's going to mount to the front. So that's what we're going to work on today. Also, here is my glorious hood hinges. So I went to shut it, and bad things happened. I'm not going to say that I yanked on it. I'm going to say that I shut it like a normal person. Oh boy. I didn't yank on it really hard at all. But here are my new hinges. Let's get to it. So now I got to actually take the hood off. So let's get cracking. This freaking hood, by the way, this thing's got to weigh like 60 pounds. Maybe we'll have to put it on a scale, because if you think I'm exaggerating. And it's awkward, and I'm a little dude, so have fun watching me struggle. This is where Dane drops his nut and pulls his back out. All right, here's a quick look at how the fuel lines ended up getting finished up. So everything is done down there. Comes up to a -8, goes into the rail around the back, and then I ended up getting a 90 that goes to a -6. So that actually comes back over, plumbs into here, and then out for the return. So we ended up following the fuel map that I had, because this was close, but I had enough room for this 90, and then I just dropped it down to a -6 so we could fit it underneath there. As you can see, I have these guys. You've probably seen them in other episodes. So these were actually attaching to the top of the intercooler in the beginning, and I had a bar that goes across. So now we're going to get rid of these. I'll use these to attach to the bottom, hopefully, but I do have the bar piece that will attach and hang it from the top. So let's get cracking on that. All right, so this thing is actually gonna live in here, something like that. And initially I had it feeding there and then going out here, and that was backwards, so it needs to come in here and go out there. But initially, like I said, these were holding onto these guys, so we'll see. Let's see how we go. So it'll be something like that. I got this to clean up, so let's clean that up real quick before we get rolling. And then what else? We'll clean that up, tighten this down, so that way I can get a good reference on where it's gonna go. But yeah, something like that. Okay, so we've got the old mounting positions. They're welded on. There's a couple like little square pieces of aluminum, and then these other mounting points. I've got those all ground flush, so that way this can fit up underneath the grill and actually touch flush, or like right up underneath it, and not have those things sticking off and make it all weird. And while I was grinding on this, I was thinking to myself, this is actually like a high-end nice intercooler, and the company that sells it, it's funny because back in the day, whenever this thing was sold, I don't know how many years old this is, but if you were able to like go back in time and go, hey, this thing's gonna end up with some backyard builder and he's gonna be grinding all these mounts and crap off of it with a 4-inch hand grinder that cost $10 from Harbor Freight, and then he's gonna stuff it on the front of like some turd car that barely kind of runs, that's like dilapidated, and like make it kind of fit behind the bumper but hang out, and it'll just be ridiculous. And it's actually not gonna make it to like a high-end Supra or whatever this thing was intended for. I'd love to see that guy's face, because he'd be like, you're stupid. It's like Bill and Ted, like, we need to go back. We need to take this back and go to the company and go, look at what I did to your masterpiece. And then the guy'd probably knock me out. But anyway, let's get back to it. That's enough daydreaming. So we have this guy in place, and then I had to clearance the grill a little bit so we could put the screws in, obviously, when we get to that point. And then I had this guy here. So I made this previously, and it bolts through the core support. So we'll bolt this in and then see what we need to do to attach those bungs to this. Before we get too far ahead on this, what I did is I had these little rods that had these bungs or whatever on it, so I cut the bungs off, and then we're gonna put these bungs on those bungs on bungs, and then that'll give you a place to land the attachment point. So let me put them on there. I'll show you what I'm talking about. We'll keep on rolling. All right, so you see right in behind, I have the steel bung bolted down on top of the aluminum one. So the aluminum one is obviously welded here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna make an attach point that jumps from here to this little bar that I have that is bolted through the cross member. So we just gotta go from here to there, and then from here to there, and that should hold this thing in place. And then we'll get onto the bottom portion mounting that. And then it's on to plumbing. Oh, the other thing too, I'm limited in my stuff. I don't have a lot of stock. I went over this when I did this last time, but literally I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel with whatever I have laying around. So trying to get this thing done is cheap and effective as we can. So I think we're just gonna use some of this thin wall tubing and then make little standoffs that go from here and triangulate them like that. We'll just do two on each side. So here's the bar that goes across, and then these two guys are just some thin wall tubing. And then what I'm gonna do, I wanted to run two of them to the same point, but because it's so small, trying to cope two pieces and weld them up, I think I'd have a big blob right there. So I just put these two guys in, and then I'm just gonna run a piece, you know, from here to there. So this will kind of hang out, but then I'll be able to get a good weld here, a good weld there, and a good weld there. Instead of trying to put a V piece off of there, because it's just gonna be a big cluster F with all the welding and everything. Yeah, once these two in, once this one and this one are in, that should support the weight of this bad boy. So I want to get them all tacked up though before we do that. And then at least in there it doesn't look too bad. You can see the bars through there, but it looks like we tried a little bit, and it's not bad for scrap material. So we'll keep on trucking. This is what I use, by the way, just some thin wall junk I had laying around. So carry on. All right, I finished coping the last two little pieces. So here's one, and then here's the other one. And these are just the little standoff arms. So this is to triangulate it to hold that thing a bit better. So let me tack these in place. I'll give you guys a look at it, and then we should be able to move the jack, and hopefully it'll hang there. But maybe I'll have to put good tacks on it so we don't drop this stupid thing and break it. So let's get to welding. All right, so that is my contraption that is gonna hold the top out of tubing. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool for the most part, I guess. Coping is kind of terrible, but we'll just fill it in with some MIG weld. I'm not scared. Yeah, we're fine. All right, I'm gonna actually pull it off real quick, put some real good tacks on it, and then hang it, make sure everything works. I wanna get everything done and feel good about it, because if you finish weld something and then something else doesn't really play nice, then you're cutting and grinding all those welds. I've learned that I've made way too much stuff like this. This looks fine, it should probably work out great, but if I weld it up, there's gonna be something that kicks my ass later, so we'll just put some real good tacks on it and then move on to the other mounting points. That way everything is in place before we finish weld everything. So pull it, good tacks, hang it, we'll make the bottom portions. Bob's your uncle, let's get rolling. Ooh, still hot. There we go. All right, so here's our piece. It's not terribly square, but that's not bad. It's good enough for what we're doing. So put a few more good tacks on here, we'll stick it back in, and then we'll move on. So alright, here we go. Da-da-da-da. Ta-da! Alright, so it is in there. And this thing is hanging. Alright. So, that's what we look like till we finish welding. Okay, let me show you what I've decided to do as far as mounting the bottom portion of this. Like I said, it's supported from the top, but I just don't want it to flop like that, you know, like, because the top is supported, and then it would flop on the bottom and bang on the core support. Probably punch a hole, who knows what. I mean, granted, with the hoses on there, I doubt it's gonna move around, but cheap insurance, right? So I got these little rods. So here's my little bung, and I put the little metal piece on there. And then I think I'm just gonna take and run a little rod to the core support here, and then just weld it to the little bung. And then I can actually just push this thing off just a little bit. I'll put something in between it just to give it some space, and then I'll weld this thing all up and it'll hold it off of there. And that way I don't have to worry about this vibrating hole in my intercooler, you know, from it moving and banging around when I'm driving, if I do it that way. So it'll be a little standoff and it'll hold it. And if I keep these short, this should be rigid enough to keep it in place. And then we'll angle it. I'll just do one on this side, one on that side, and then we should be good. And then I'm gonna go to the inside of it to keep it out of the way. This is where somehow we got to put a new bumper mount after I plumb it. So it'll probably have to tuck underneath, or however we're gonna manage that. But first things first, let's get this welded up and bent and figured out, and then I'll give you guys a peek at that. So let's keep it rolling. Like that should do it. Alright, so there it is. Fully welded all the way around, both sides. And then on the bottom, you got a little standoff here and a little standoff down there. You can see them in line. And there's room in there, it's minimal, but it's not touching. And that's all we need. And then this thing, like I said, this thing ain't going nowhere. Especially with that, and then when you put the hose on there, we're golden. And there she is. All right, well, we got this giant Mother of All Intercoolers hanging off the front of the car. It is in position. Now all that's left to do is to plumb the cold side, and then the turbo's back in business because we didn't touch the hot side. So I've got to reclock the turbo, run some plumbing, I'm going to play with that for a bit. I think we're done with today's episode. I will catch you guys up to speed on the next one, let you know how the plumbing turned out, and then hopefully we can get on to the Terminator install, because I know a lot of you guys are following this. You're waiting for that. So on the next one, let's jump to doing some wiring, do an install on the Terminator, see how that goes. So like it, subscribe, click the bell, share with your friends. Thank you for watching. I'm out.